Good morning and welcome to Jasiri. It's the last Monday in the month of January, a last full week for us to really set the pace for 2026, and we are also doing that right here with the conversations we're having right off the bat. Before the demolitions in Makoko, education in the community was already a fragile reality. A riverine settlement where many children paddled canoes to school, attended low-resource budget schools, or never even set foot in a classroom at all. An estimated 68% of children in Makoko attended private budget schools because formal government schools were scarce or inaccessible, and many families struggled with indirect costs like uniforms and exam fees, even where free education was promised. There were bright spots, grassroots initiatives like free floating schools that helped keep children in class and even reduce crime. But overall, schooling was deeply influenced by poverty, geography, and infrastructure limitations. Then came the latest wave of demolitions across Makoko, which not only flattened homes, but also tore through community schools, forcing pupils out of classrooms, disrupting attendance, and pushing many children back into canoes and into uncertainty. As conversations around education took center stage this weekend, we focus on what all of this means for education outcomes in Makoko, for children trying to learn, for families struggling to keep them in school, and for a community whose hopes for tomorrow are being reshaped by upheaval today. Joining us now is Bukola Adebayo. She's the West Africa Correspondent for the Thomson Reuters Foundation. She has reported on health, gender, environment, and political issues across several African countries for media organizations, including CNN. And she has also taught at the Harvard Division of Continuing Education and is a 2021 Nieman Fellow at Harvard University. Bukola, welcome to Jasiri.
Thank you so much.
I like you when women have accolades.
Oh my God! I was like, all those educational stuff come on this tiny body. Wow!
I love it when women have accolades.
Thank you for having me today. It's great to be here.
Thank you
Very
so much for joining us.
We've been having this conversation for like a week now, and I know that you've been covering, Lagos waterfront communities since 2016.
Yeah.
With, the forced evictions around that Otodo Gbame in 2017, you interviewed the Bale of that community. Just one day before hired thugs, set fire to the fishing settlement. Nearly 9 years later, many who have resettled in Makoko, which is considered Nigeria's largest waterfront settlement, all of them have been affected again by the ongoing demolitions that have been happening since December 2025. So, between the last demolitions and these one, what would you say is the state of Makoko education before the latest eviction? What was schooling like for the Makoko people before these current demolitions?
I mean, in 2026, when Otodo Gbame, that's like a waterfront community in Lekki area and Lekki axis, when they were being demolished, a lot of them are immigrants from West Africa.
So not only from Nigeria?
Not only from Nigeria. A lot of them are immigrants from across West Africa, and which includes also Badagry in Nigeria. And they've come to Lagos City to settle down. They've been there for decades. I mean, even before some of our parents were born. And when that demolition happened, a lot of them, like some of the stories I covered back then, overnight, they set fire to the community. It was the same way of not giving enough notice for the community to even engage and think of where they were going to go from there. So overnight, a lot of them rushed down to Makoko, where we also know that is a waterfront community that has a lot of immigrant community, a lot of immigrants from West Africa. Naturally, if you lose your home, you're going to go to a place where you can find work, and where you can find families that can support you. So naturally, Makoko is the next place that people from Otodo Gbame, more than 1,000 residents or 3,000 residents with children at this time, moved to Makoko. So when this round of demolitions happened, of course, these are communities that I've been in touch with. They reached out to me and said, listen, our schools have been demolished. In Makoko, they have probably 3 schools, and the reason why I say probably is because at a particular point in time, these schools are threatened by weather. They are threatened by demolitions the government saying we're going to come to this community to demolish these schools. So a lot of uncertainty has always been the way of life of people living in Makoko. Yeah. And when I visited, I've gone twice now, and it was so devastating to see schools in water. You're seeing structures that three generations of families went to school there. Their father went to school there. Their mother went to school there. Their siblings went to school there. And they are saying that school in water. 2 of them were in water. The third one was just barely standing when I went there 2 weeks ago. And it's very heartbreaking for me that in demolitions and forced evictions, we don't usually put the education of children at the forefront of our decisions.
Right. So, Bukola, my question is, I'm curious to know how geography, poverty, and infrastructure, how did all of that shape schooling? And what kind of schools existed there? Were they formal, informal? What kind of, and then what exactly were the children learning?
Well, the schools, I want to also say that a lot of people think waterfront communities are only there because of poverty. It's not really because of that. If you are fishing, you want to stay close to water if that is your way of life. Yeah. We have waterfront communities in Gambia. Mm-hmm. We have waterfront communities in Togo. Definitely. We have them all over Africa where people live without threat of demolition every time. Yeah. Because the government recognizes that people will naturally want to live close to where their workplaces and their work. They are majorly fishing communities, they are going to be on water. So sometimes, and a lot of times, it's not really poverty that makes them live on water. That is their natural habitat for their occupation. The schools would definitely model the waterfront structure. You can see that some of them are wood, planks. It will model the structure of the people living there. They were doing the national exams that the Nigerian students do. They were doing WAEC. They had some of the kids I spoke to, some of their siblings had already finished their school living certificates and were trying to find other form of occupation. Of course, they are trying to enter the universities and some of the limitations around that. So it's a normal day for people in Makoko in terms of education. It's not the quality that it should be in communities off water, and that is because of negligence, not by the people, but by the government that should take care of these structures and structures in the waterfront communities across Nigeria.
Bukola, I'm actually still in awe that, you know, there were schools in, you know, that particular community. But then now that we've established that many children attended low-cost private or even community-run schools, tell us, why did these schools matter so much to Makoko community? What gaps were they filling that the formal system did not?
I mean, like the gap any parent wants for their education. You want them to get educated. You want them to be able to progress formally into the system. And the gap he filled was, the more you have out-of-school children, the more they are more likely to engage in criminal activities. The more they are more likely not to have some sort of distorted growth and career opportunities. I say career because a lot of them train formally. They train formally, a lot of them, some of them go to universities. And the guide that takes me around Otodugbame and takes me around Makoko, he is from Makoko. He finished from the engineering department at the University of Lagos. He's been able to get out of the community. That's what education gives to the children in Makoko. It gives them aspirational hope. I can someday be any professional I want to be in Nigeria. That's the gap it feels. It feels also the gap of parents also knowing that their children can integrate into the society. You just don't want students to go to school on water in Makoko. You also want them to reintegrate into the society, meet other children, and also aspire to be whoever they want to be in future. So, and now that those schools are gone, you can imagine they are just children just thinking of the next day, not even thinking of the future.
And that was really what the situation was before. Children thinking of the next day. One of the articles I read mentioned a young boy named Shegun. At the time that the free floating schools came about, he was 10 years old. Yeah. And he had grown up to live on the streets. He would eat whatever he could find. He would sleep wherever night met him. And I was talking to my husband, but I said, don't they have parents? Don't they have people who are looking for them? So is Mama Shegu not going to say, Shegu did not come home tonight? And I was just thinking about really, I think for many of us, the situation in Makoko befuddles us. It confuses us because it's not what we realistically expect. But let's talk about the community's first free-floating school, and that was built in 2010 by the Yacht Club of Nigeria. It was run by the family of the community's chief, Emmanuel Shemede. Now, the Shemedes were able to start 2 additional schools under the Parts of Solution Nursery and Primary School name as enrollment boomed. And so we've seen reports that as more children went to these grassroots schools, you saw a decline in crime, and it was helping to keep the children engaged. So in terms of stability, routine, even safety, how critical were the schools in Makoko?
Some of the parents I spoke to, some of them had lost their businesses. I spoke to a woman who owned like the biggest provision store on water in Makoko, and all those things were in water because it had been demolished. But that wasn't even our headache. Our headache is she has 5 kids. What are these kids going to be doing during the day? They are going to be out of the regular school system. Now she's going to have to distribute them across friends or families. Who knows? They're going to go into some domestic help situation. And again, the more you have out of school children, and Nigeria, by the way, has one of the highest numbers of out of school children in the world. And the children from Makoko, they are going to contribute to that numbers. The more you are going to see children being abused, because they are going to be forced into situations that they are helpless about. You are going to see them helping out in businesses that they have no business. They should be in school, but they are going to be at stores, in markets. They are going to be in traffic spots. They are going to look for ways to survive. And we cannot legislate on whatever they choose to do in order to be able to survive. Even look at some of them, they don't want to engage in criminal activity. And I also refrain from saying criminal activities because we tend to say when children are out of school, they engage. Some of them, the problem is abuse. They are going to be subjected to abuse.
You know, before the rise of community schools, you know, Makoko's youth often grew up without structure. I know the Yaba community very well, and I know that, you know, a lot of them just linger about and, you know, just leave. We don't even consider them Nigerians because a lot of people will just call them some traditional names and say, oh, these people. So falling into cycles of crime, violence, and hopelessness, basically, we will say that was their, you know, that was what their life was about. But with the advent of schools, community schools where they could learn, dream, and, you know, stay safe, generally, all those things started to change. The circle started to reverse somehow. Even before the demolitions, there were barriers to their learning outcomes. Because I have been to the community myself and done NGO work like twice or thrice. We did Christmas parties for them a couple of times. So you're still looking at some of the things that you consider barriers to them that are just evident. Things like attendance, cost, infrastructure, teacher quality, you know, distance, because even in those communities, you still see that some students, you have to go and fish. Some still have to go to the market.
Yes.
You know, some have to tend. Another one I even saw is that they have to tend to their younger ones. Because they seem to have a lot of children. So half the time you would see a young child caring for a much younger child.
Yes.
So these were things that you consider barriers. So what would you say, even aside these demolitions, were maybe barriers that I haven't mentioned or thought about?
And I want to add to that, were the free schools really free? Truly like free for them?
2 of the schools that were demolished that I actually saw, they are run by the community, partially subsidized, but parents paid for their school, their children's tuition. They paid for their fees. So you would have non-governmental organizations. You've mentioned the free-floating. You've mentioned philanthropic families that would go to these communities and donate school books, pencils, or educational materials. That's how they've been able to get by over the years. It's part philanthropy, part NGO intervention, and part the kindness of Nigerians every day. That's how they've always faced the challenges of not having enough. educationally, infrastructure-wise, and I also would like to, sanitation-wise. And I wanted to dwell on sanitation because the conversation that comes anytime they talk about Makoko is dirty, it's filthy,
it is.
The water stinks. Why are children living in this kind of situation? And I would say, if you've been to waterfront communities in other countries, it's not stinking, it's not dirty. It's actually, there are places that people actually go there to lodge because they want to feel some form of earthly, you breathe natural air, you are on water, the oxygen there is really clean, but that's not the situation in Makoko. And we have agencies that are responsible for this.
But is that a situation of sort of a chicken and egg thing? Makoko came about as a conflagration of things. It wasn't planned. So is it that without the planning, this is what happened? Makoko grew faster than any attempt, if there were any attempt to sanitize, to bring in pipe-borne water, to make sure that there's potable water, there's bathrooms, there's those kind of things. Because again, you talk about the donations, but we've seen some of this come about because of the philanthropic behaviors of people. So is it because Makoko was not planned, was not meant to be, or even though it's been there since 1901, the 18th century? So how do you marry the two? Because for some people, it's almost like Makoko should not exist at all.
Well, you'll be surprised. For a lot of people, they are saying, why do these communities exist? And I say these communities have existed since 18, like you said, way before our parents. And again, I would say, when you recognize a community as being part of your fabric, you would integrate it into your educational plans, your sanitation plans, your state waste management plans. What are the state waste management plans in Makoko? What are the educational plans for people living in Makoko? Or you've just seen this community as an eyesore that shouldn't exist in your city? Those are the questions I think we need to continually pose. Why have we adjudicated our responsibilities to non-profits, to philanthropy? How will it be if the government, I'm not saying the government is not involved, they also have regular sort of like health outreaches in Makoko. They consult with them during some local government planning. I know that is ongoing. It will not be fair to say they've been neglected totally. They are cited. But will you say you have similar infrastructure that you have in Iwaya, which is the community that is close to Makoko, in Makoko, in terms of planning?
You know, there's so many things that just leave questions and you want to just, you know, look at it more critically. Now, let's examine both the disruption and the consequences for, or let's say the educational outcomes in this community. Of course, our guest is here with us. Thank you, Bukola, for shedding so much light to this particular discourse. When news of the demolition spread, everybody was just talking what they liked. Can you tell us what you saw when you were there, especially concerning the schools that were in the community? Because you know how we like to hearsay of what happened. Some will say, oh, this is what happened. But because we want to be able to take a very intelligent and informed knowledge of what happened in Makoko, can you just tell us?
Okay, you know, since December, they've started demolitions in Makoko, and people will travel across the bridge to their offices, to their homes. And a lot of us were seeing this happening, and we just didn't know how to, many people don't even know how to enter Makoko, and they just didn't know how to intervene. So at the beginning, it was told that it was going to be contained to a particular area. And as it began to reach a wider region, a wider sort of area in the area, unit in the area, more homes were being demolished. And when I mean demolished, I mean people are just, you are just in your structure, and before you know it, the excavator is about to just uproot you.
You're saying no notice?
Not no notice. It is if you were told that something is just going to affect 100 meters, and your house is 300 meters away from that, you feel you feel rested. You don't feel threatened by the demolition, because I understand, even from the Makoko residents, that they were told that these demolitions will happen, but in a contained area. So those living away from that area, they felt, oh, we have an agreement. They felt safe. So if as the excavators were going further in, you're just in your store and something has uprooted you, you have to jump into water. Of course they can swim. That's how shocking and devastating that this round of demolition has been.
So basically, the government didn't keep to their word.
That is what Makoko residents are saying. The government did not keep to the agreements that was going to be within a particular...
Those structures
50
under
meters,
the high...
after some time they said the 100 meters. You know, the government is saying that they have like 250 meters.
Yes, because when Governor Sanwo-Olu was speaking the other day, he was talking about 150 and 200 meters. And when I was listening to his press conference, I was like, but wait, what we kept hearing was 50 meters back from the power line. When did 150? Because people have said there are markers that are going back almost 300 meters.
Exactly. The thing with technology is that you can't deny what is facts. So there's Google Earth imagery
to show before and after,
to show how far these demolitions have gone, and to show that the residents that have been affected outside of the contained area are not lying.
But does that not make you question the residents who were affected inside the contained area? You're building under a power line. You're getting, as I was looking at, you're getting closer to Third Mainland Bridge. I was not aware of how much closer some of the structures had started getting to Third Mainland Bridge. And so I looked at one of our drone shots. I'm like, these things they were even moving beyond the power line, closer to Third Mainland Bridge within the lagoon. Shouldn't we also question that?
Of course. I mean, I guess that is why, and I'm not guessing. That's why we have rules and we have laws. If the government says you're moving beyond the territory that you're supposed to move, there were two things. There were houses around the power line. Then there's the encroachment towards the Third Mainland Bridge.
Yes.
You've had consultation with residents to say you're encroaching towards the Third Mainland Bridge and towards the power line. We're going to conduct demolitions around
to clear those places.
And I'm thinking that's why the residents actually agreed to that.
Okay. So how about the schools now involved in the process? How many schools were demolished? Because, the government is saying one thing, we're seeing another, the residents are saying something else. So, first of all, that's a breach, because that's not what they comprehended, that the government's, as part of the government's plans. And now schools are involved. So which schools, like how many schools, when you went there, what did you see versus what was it? And then how many schools were demolished in the process?
Like I said again, Makoko does not have as many schools as they should. Lolo has talked about how the reproductive rates, the average family in Makoko is probably 5 to 6 children. And that is just from one family. You could have
that's from one woman, because they're also polygamous.
Yes, I was just going to say
one man can have 4 wives in Makoko, so they're also polygamous.
They can have six
so
children.
a family can have 24 children.
Exactly. So that is the. I personally think the population.
She's speaking her words.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I think that the population of Makoko is actually underestimated, considering what we have said. That there are families that are polygamous, and there are women that have 7 children. If you have 4 children, that's how many? That's 21. So you can imagine they don't have as many schools as they should, and that is the pain point for me. Away from the demolition, away from the eviction, away from the reasons that's caused this demolition to go beyond the circumference or the agreements that the government has had with the residents, or the sort of consultation they have with them. What are the plans to restore? I saw 2 schools demolished to the ground in water, 2 schools, and I saw one that had been destroyed. That means it's still standing. And even
this is the one, right?
This is the one. And
this is one of the most
well known. This is one of them.
Yes.
And even till today, it is the residents that are trying to put it
up
back
the pieces
together.
This where this boy is standing now. There was a school there.
This is the Waino Nursery and Primary School.
Completely gone.
Completely gone. There are 2 generations of their family that went to that school. So It's not like
another school gone here.
That's his brother. It's still the same school.
Okay.
There's another school behind it that was also demolished. But I'm just saying, my plea to the government is, aside everything that has happened, help put and send these children back to school.
Yeah.
You know, so you talked about Otodogbami, and I remember covering it when I was on radio, and I saw from your Facebook Megan Chapman.
Megan Chapman,
and I
yes.
remember interviewing Megan Chapman because of the displacement.
Yes.
There was what they were told was going to be provided for them, and what was eventually on the ground. I think it was Fashola.
Yes.
When Fashola's government.
I think it was Ambode at the
okay,
time.
it was maybe around the same time. Yeah, it was when the government eventually demolished their places of abode. So they were promised land, some of them were promised housing. None of that really came about. And then there were hundreds of people who didn't get anything. We're seeing that again with Makoko.
Exactly.
What is the global best practice when it comes to relocation of vulnerable communities?
And that's a very great question. And I wanted to use that opportunity to talk about what happens in a demolition or an eviction all over the world. If government wants to take over a land in the interest, if government wants to take over a land in public interest, there is a consultation process which includes notice.
Yeah.
Good notice.
What is good notice? Because government is saying they've been telling them for 5 years.
But I do not want to
No,
agree.
I've not
Where are they
finished.
supposed to go to?
No, I've not finished. It includes notice. It includes relocation.
For everyone or for... See, I have questions as you're talking about the process.
Yes. It includes relocation. It includes compensation.
Compensation is where me, I have issue.
Apparently she's not done with the process.
So, and governments know these things.
Yes, they do.
So if you are going to take over somebody's land, and I use the word somebody's land, because if you look at the law of the land, if you've lived in a place for a specific period of time, it's assumed that you have some sort of ownership over that land.
And we're talking about a settlement that has been in place since the 1800s.
Thank you so much.
1901.
I mean, it's not. You can't even dispute their right to be able to exist, build, and live on that land. In Otodogbami, the residents said they were not given enough notice. The demolitions happened in one of the gruesome ways I've ever seen.
Yeah, I remember this.
By the time I got there the day before, I'd gone to interview the ballet. We were still talking about, the demolition. We're still talking about, the compensation. And the next day, there was fire rising up from structures.
Because the people are not moving, they set fire to it.
They set fire into it.
We're not saying government set fire to unknown people. That's why I wanted to make
Thugs,
sure.
politics, said politics. Thugs came claiming to be political thugs. We have, of course, that's to be questioned.
Yeah.
Set fire on the community, and people had to find shelter. People even left just as themselves with the clothes on their back.
And people died.
I
remember the story.
So in the process, if you don't give, the consultation is supposed to include relocation, meaning you relocate them to a land that they can say is theirs. Then you compensate them for the structure they've had on that land, so that they will have something to begin again.
Before, we have to go on a break. I know. We're starting to, because there's a lot of questions that need to be asked here. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, it is a conversation about the learning outcomes and the education outcomes in the wake of the demolitions in Makoko, but it's also a question about what happens next in this particular community. Stay with us.
Heated conversations are happening on the table. Trust me, we're discussing this thing so animatedly, but we'll have to continue. Welcome again if you're just joining us. This is Jasiri. We're talking about, all the education outcomes of Makoko's demolition. And we have a very, very intelligent guest inside the building with us. Thank you so much for staying with us. I know Dashin was
The itch is there.
That's why. Yeah. She has woken up from her leave.
When you come back from leave, you're fresh.
Yes. So that shit fire
I'm so sorry, but a lot of, information I'm actually getting from you is quite new to me, and, most of them have actually been underreported. Right? From everything that you have detailed, yes, the demolitions carried out were really gruesome. And it's actually novel to me that some people died, right?
Remember she was talking about Otodogbami, but we're also hearing that there were deaths as well in the latest round of demolitions.
I'm just asking, why were the casualty or even death, why was the death underreported? Why is it not... in the spotlight.
When the governor spoke, he did not mention that people had died. Somebody flagged that. I said, that's true, because we played excerpts from him. He didn't even mention that people had died.
The thing is, I think we've become so desensitized to the death toll of incidents. If it's not up to 100 people, if it's not up to 50 people, if it's not up to 20 people,
it passes us by.
It passes us by. I think the media doesn't even care sometimes. No, if the death toll isn't as much. I mean, the media,
I think we've zoned out.
Yeah, and it's because of the insecurity in the country. We're hearing higher death tolls from northern Nigeria. Yeah. We're hearing higher death tolls from north central Nigeria. So those are some of the things that sort of desensitized Nigerians to the death of 10, 15, or 20 people. But I can assure you that much more than the immediate deaths that happen in demolition or forced eviction, in the months after, people develop cases of high blood pressure, of hypertension. Yeah. People have they've lost their businesses, they can't buy medication. I spoke to a woman who was, her shop was demolished in Oworonshoki, and she's diabetic. She needs insulin. She can't afford it.
And the prices of that went up last year.
Went up last year. So she was in the clinic. Not as the immediate death, as the immediate result of the demolition, but the aftermath of the demolition. When you take people's livelihoods from them, you take the ability for them to look after their health.
Bukola, you said something that when government wants to take land for public good, and you listed, of course, that there has to be a relocation, notice, relocation, compensation. Otodogbami is an example.
Yes.
They were in court when the demolitions happened.
Yeah.
This latest demolition in Makoko is another example. I think 2024 or 2025 High Court judgment said to maintain status quo.
Yes.
This happened.
Yes.
So you have a situation where the people are using the resources available to them, or those who are representing their interests are, and government seems to not care. But beyond that, you see some of the visuals, and the residents have been flagging sand filling that was going on beside. If we can get the visuals of that, what are they telling you about the sand filling that's happening while these demolitions are also happening?
I told you, if you can remember the case of Otodogbami, which you also covered, a major crisis point was sand filling. In Otodogbami, they started sand filling. And what I mean, not just sand filling, dredging, sand mining, taking sand from seaside, from the coastal area, selling it, and filling it up to be able to build modern, prime, real estate.
That's it. We're saying you'll still see more of it.
And when that was happening in Otodogbami residents recognized that this was going to lead to their eventual eviction. And they, like you said, they used all the resources. They went to court. They reached out to the governor. They reached out to the government. They went to court. And even at that, despite court judgment saying status quo, even after demolition, court judgment saying relocation, compensation, none of those have been honored. None of those have been honored. And again, when I say there are processes to these things, if we are consulting with people and you are not mentioning compensation, you are not mentioning relocation, how are they going to agree to leave that place?
And Lola will ask one question. She asked it last week. Relocate to where? This is Lagos.
It's part of the question. Is already.
She kept saying that last week. Relocate to go where?
Because if we're looking at land.
Yes, at least if there was like a camp,
see the sand filling,
right? Which I know they're good at, a camp where they actually built for these people to,
manage. IDPs.
Exactly.
Why are you turning me into an IDP?
Exactly, but we know that this is what they're good for. And I say this, when you're talking about land, there's actually land in Lagos. So, in my leave, during my leave, I traveled all the way to Alaro City and I saw land.
a lot of cities in Nepal.
You know, seeing land doesn't mean that the land is fallow.
See, or that it's available.
No, if it's available, the government can give it to them.
To how many doesn't mean that the land is free.
The thing is,
there's so much.
The thing is, if we take time to look at some of the new settlements across Lagos City itself, we would see that the government, even itself, is constructing housing projects.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Of course, we know, we are not saying that even, I'm not sure Makoko residents want those kind of.
Bukola, let me get ahead of you for a bit. The government, there is nothing that's too far in the purview of government. There's none. There's land anywhere in this city. It doesn't have to be in the places that you see, but there is land.
And everybody doesn't have to be together.
And everybody doesn't have to be together. So all you need to do...
people, so they might just not want land.
It's not land.
But what about Badagry?
Exactly.
But Badagry is not a free community. So there are other things that we need to consider there.
No. There's nothing if the government decides that this is what they want to do, they will do it.
No, but as we are discussing on this table, we're still going to be back here to discuss the cultural problems or issues of community integration. That's how about if people say we don't want these people? We don't want them in our community.
But
that's another crisis in the making.
So because as a Nigerian, you're entitled to live anywhere.
And then you allow that. Then the government doesn't need to step in. That's why you have the ballets and the ceux qui dirigent la communauté là. People that lead.
Like for me, there are so many ways. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, Lolo is pro-government." I'm not. I am totally not pro-government because I know that there are many things that they can't do that they have failed to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. Education. And do you know that there are systematic ways you can actually evict people that might not become this devastating?
Exactly.
Even if you have to, like, I don't even know how they do it, like going to boarding school.
Exactly.
Where your parents will put you inside the car with all your load and drive you straight to school. I'm not saying there's a less painless way, but let's just put it at the back of our mind that I doubt if there will ever be a way to evict people that will not have chaos in it.
It's fine. But my sister, I'm so sorry, Bukola, because now it's something that we are all passionate about.
Yes, please.
It's about not putting the cart before the horse and doing things properly. Let's do things properly. This is not rocket science. If they are committed to doing this, they would. First of all, okay, stand under the umbrella that there's election next year. You want to do something pretty for optics. You want to do something, you can do it if you have the will to. Which one beyond these ones that we have to be loloxing and the people have to be crying out and before government steps in?
About, them being a riverine area and the only thing they actually know is fishing. But you can actually go from being a fish farmer, to be to farming food.
It's not that easy.
Anyway,
it's not that easy.
Literally inbred in you. It's almost in your DNA.
Even if you wanted to talk about the fishing, Lagos is a coastal community.
Exactly.
I said community is a coastal city, meaning we are surrounded by water, and we are not at loss as to where. I mean, if we, it's because I don't really want to get technical. If you wanted to really think about it, the government has all these plans. They have places where they can relocate people. They have places in terms of their fishing communities. There's Ekpe, there's Badagry. There are places, even the Eco-Atlantic City was a bar beach.
Yeah.
And they've turned where you and I used to go and hang out on Fridays.
So many private
It's a gated, restricted community that none of us can access. Are you going to say that is a public good? No. Are you going to say relocating Makoko residents from where they are, is it in public good?
That brings, because you said you covered Owonshoki, and that brings me to Owonshoki, and we've covered it extensively as well. And the day our correspondent was telling us about it, telling us that there is even a website already advertising Owonshoki gated community.
Yes.
And we, right here on this table, we sat here and we went and we saw it online. And so it tells you that this idea of public good and public interest, it seems that there's a different definition that government has than the people have. Because some are even saying that there's already something like that for Makoko as well.
I mean, I don't have the details, and I usually don't like to speculate. What I would say is, in the last 2 years, we've all been saying how sand filling has been happening under the bridge, under the third mainland bridge. Is becoming more like land, less like water. And that is how prime properties on waterfront starts. If you want to set up a beach sort of community, that was how they started sand filling Bar Beach before it became Eco Atlantic City. And when that is happening, we saw how the water under Third Mainland Bridge was becoming more cloudy. You can see sand. There are days I'm like, look at this water. It's so dirty. Those are clear things that you used to. There's even water is therapeutic. After a long day at work, you are going over the bridge. You want to be able to see the water and just rest. We don't have that. And as they are sand filling, and we're all seeing it, I think it's time to start documenting what we are seeing. With drone shots. With daily Google Earth is helping us to document. In a few years, when a gated community or a beach community comes on Makoko, then we'll come back to this conversation.
Won't it be too late? Once that is established, what then is
but many communities,
the consequence of it?
I mean, there are communities that have been taken over. Morocco taken over. What is happening now is not new.
So what's the next
it's
one?
a playbook.
Where's next?
It's a playbook. Would we have thought that Oworoshoki was going to be demolished in the manner it's been demolished? I mean, that is not on water, is it?
No. But some of those houses were very close to water. At least the ones that are very near.
But then again,
that wasn't
they've gone beyond the area.
Cursed into the.
And then again, I say, where was the government when they were encroaching?
That's also
into this,
my grouse. Oftentimes when government comes to do these demolitions, who is responsible for monitoring and surveillance?
Where were the lands?
Before they built up, before people moved in, before they started living, and it was 5 years, and then you come with your eviction and demolition. Who is responsible for making sure, in a city like Lagos, where structure can go up overnight if you want to who is responsible for making sure it doesn't?
I mean, at the bottom of this is corruption.
Absolutely.
Whereby
absolute corruption.
You can do whatever you want to do, secure land access, land ownership. So far you have the right content and you have the right purse to be able to pay for that.
And still claim you're doing it for the good of the people.
And still claim you are doing it for the group of people. Even in Lekki and the more affluent areas, we've seen mass demolition of estates. Who gave them the right to build in those places in the first place?
And who was watching when they were
building? Who are the people monitoring that they do not encroach on canals? So those are the.
Suddenly,
I think the agencies that have to do with planning, urban planning, housing in Lagos, we need to beam the searchlight on them.
People that don't resume before 9. People that don't resume.
I'm even hearing some people, some communities of some Jakonde estates are beginning to talk loud as if there's a proposed plan for them too.
There were some demolitions last week that I believe it was Israel.
Like I said, it was just 2 months ago, somebody called me, land that bought since like 2017. And somebody called me, I'd fenced it. And we made sure it was like 1.5 kilometers away from the road. But the Ogun State government took over it. They allocated it to a Chinese company.
And on that note, we'll go and take a break. When we come back, we'll pick up the conversation. Stay with us. So while we started this conversation looking at education outcomes in Makoko in the wake of the demolitions, of course, Saturday was World Education Day, we've expanded the conversation to look at what is truly happening in Makoko. And one of the things that came up in the wake of the demolitions were accusations or allegations from the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, saying that, or asking why NGOs were crying more than the bereaved, and saying that they had some evidence that in fact it was the NGOs that are fueling the situation. Is how Bukola is looking at me? Is NGOs that are fueling the situation in Makoko in particular. And I'm one of those who have seen so many people go in and out. Yeah. Makoko has become location for poverty porn. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Lolo has talked about the fact that now if you want to do anything in Makoko, you have to settle, you have to pay money. Yes. But does that then lend credence to the governor's accusations of the NGOs misrepresenting situations in Makoko, or even also trying to profit? He said, we're aware that, quote, we are aware that there are some local and international NGOs that want to profit from this. Yeah. They make so much money from international donors. They have collected so many grants in the name of Makoko, and it's just to cover their lies and the fact that they have not done what they said they were going to do, end quote. He then added that the government is monitoring the activities of these organizations and has gathered evidence to support their claims. They have evidence, they have videos, they have communications of what they have done for the past 2.5 years, and that they will likely bring out some sort of evidence. I think Makoko does live on a lifeline of NGO help. Yeah. Not maybe 100%, but a lot of NGO help goes into it. Is there any, do you think, with the work you've done there, the coverage you've done there, that there's any credence to what the governor is saying?
I mean, with all due respect to Governor Sanwo-Olu, he may have some documentation is put together. I don't have it. And again, I always don't comment on speculation. Mm-hmm. But I would say that the non-profits that I have worked with, that they have intervened over time in Makoko. The reason why people have intervened in Makoko, again, is because when the government adjudicates its responsibility and neglects what it's supposed to do, there are non-profits all over the world that are mapping marginalized communities, not just in Nigeria. They are mapping marginalized communities in Togo, in Benin, even in the United States. They are mapping those communities and they are going to intervene in whatever way they can. Mm-hmm. And they don't do it without the support of the government. NGOs don't operate in Nigeria without government support, without government knowledge. Yeah. Because you must have, you must register. Yes. If you are not registered, you must have some of them have offices. Yeah. You have footprints. You have collaboration. Even before you go into Makoko and start distributing contraceptives, you need to take permission from some Ministry of Health, Ministry of Reproductive Health Services. So they cannot say they are not aware of their activities. I will leave it to them to regulate or intervene, whatever they want to. But the point still remains. As Makoko being a priority as the neighboring communities on the mainland in Lagos State, that is the question. I challenge the governor. I challenge people that are in the cabinet to go to Makoko and see what they should have done that has been done. You talked about how average families in Makoko have high numbers of children. Education is part of it. Access to contraceptives is part of it. Access to reproductive. If young girls are not in school, they are going to be in places that they shouldn't be. They are going to be subject to teenage pregnancies. And I'm not using NGO language. A young girl is going around in communities and hanging around boys. She's going to be sexually active. She's going to come back with a baby because she's not in school.
You know, when this Makoko issue, I'm sure that it's not something we're going to continue. We can't stop talking about it. Yes. But the unfortunate thing is that I remember when you said Morocco, it struck my heart because now Morocco is like a figment of our imagination. You know, sometimes when all these things start, it just fizzles away after a time. Because if I tell my children now that there was a place called Morocco, they would doubt it. Because even I am beginning to visually forget what this are there no international bodies that can look into these issues and help us to speak about it? Because if we cannot hold the government that, okay, this land demolition, I hope is for, like me, I'm on the fence on this, because when I look at the environmental issues that can be, because I've been to Makoko and I felt that, okay, the urban planners should have planned this community a little better for these people. The houses are not well planned, even if they want to live on water. There is a way that Haitians, they live very close to water. There's so many communities I've seen around the world that they seem to be on water, but order and structure. So who can we ask to speak louder, or that the government can hear? Maybe that is not just us clamoring amongst the natives to be heard.
And let me add, because of time, what's the broader risk to maybe Lagos or to Nigeria when you have these kind of demolitions, a lack of relocation, a lack of compensation, in terms of the longer term social, economic and development implications if communities like Makoko continue to lose access to education?
For education, I will always talk about education first, because I think it's like the bedrock of any society. And when I say bedrock, if you have an education, you can look after yourself. You can take decisions for yourself, decisions that would not hurt you, decisions that would not harm you, and decisions for your community and for your family. And little by little, you come out of poverty. You take your family, you take your community, you take yourself out of poverty. If you want to make your hair, you can pay for your hair. You don't need someone else. You don't need to prostitute yourself because you want to,
for a blessing,
because you want to buy a wig, you know?
Sugar daddy.
So those are the things. In real terms, you can feed yourself, you can clothe yourself, you can look after yourself, and you can look after people around you and yourself and your family. That is the immediate risk of having people. We are going to have more dependency. In fact, the government is going to have more problem on its hands. Because as more people are not able to pay for their health bills, they are not able, our hospitals are going to be with people that are stranded. So they can't even take care of emergencies. You are going to have more children, more children than the community or the city itself can accommodate. You are going to have more children to look after. You are going to even have a city that is dirty. Because when I went there, I saw people living on canoes.
Yes, sleeping, rain, shine, everything.
Cooking rice, beans in canoes. What that means is after a while, they are going to leave that canoe, they are going to come to land. They are going to be sleeping under the bridge, they are going to be sleeping by the roadside. Crime is going to be a problem. Abuse is going to be a problem. When people are desperate, they will take decisions to protect and feed themselves and survive.
Let's we know we're going to have Bukola back. That's just it, because it's not just about Makoko. We've extended it now to even how government responsibility response is also lacking in some situations, and how there are longer term educational, economic and social ramifications. Now, education in Makoko was already fragile, and the demolitions have made it even harder. But as we explore today, learning is not just about classrooms and textbooks. It's about stability, opportunity, and the daily support children need to thrive. When schools are destroyed, routines are broken, dreams are put on hold, and entire communities feel the ripple effects. And it's likely that all of us in Lagos will feel the effects of this. We'll leave it on that note for now. Thank you so much for joining us on Jasiri. We'll see you guys tomorrow, Tuesday, 10 a.m. West African time, for another fantastic conversation. The best 1 hour of talk on TV. Yes, we'll see you guys tomorrow.